based, as Jerome said, on the safe system approach, largely, as well as just fundamental risk management. Okay. It was developed with the input from a range of stakeholders, including representatives from government, industry, and the community. And many of you are on the line. I should just relay that I was not in these meetings, so I will be relying on those of you that were there to, I guess, interject here when needed. So the various stakeholders that contributed to the draft guidance are listed here. And again, many of you are here and thank you very much. I think for some reason, Amy Gillett is missing from this list, and I do know that they had a lot of input bringing Clocs sort of related awareness, and of course, the NRSPP in their role. So with respect to future stakeholder groups, as we said, it's safe system aligned, so we sort of start to see the types of stakeholder groups that have a role here. And really, it's about achieving large gains in road safety with a sort of holistic approach. So it's going to require partnerships between government, industry, and research. And the 5 key stakeholder groups are identified sort of here. So we've got regulators, asset owners, clients, principal contractors, and fleet operators. And the sort of how they influence each aspect of the safe system is highlighted here. Jerome, let me know if I'm going too long. I don't know if you want me to go through the key objectives. I'll just do this quickly. Obviously, first and foremost, we want to eliminate collisions between heavy vehicles and the community. I would also highlight we want to eliminate collisions involving heavy vehicle drivers as well, because they are part of our community. As Jerome highlighted, improving efficiency through fewer vehicle journeys. So that's also about, route selection, route management, looking at things. Obviously, the more efficient we can be, the less crashes we will have. Establishing a single national standard for industry. So very important to have one guideline, and Jerome highlighted that as being important. Obviously, we have large companies who work in all states, and it is very difficult and frustrating when you have different standards in every jurisdiction. This is one of the most important things, I think, for, I guess, getting buy-in from industry, which is this reputational risk reduction. So, can you put a price on reputation? We've seen incidents like Coots Transport, for example, which many of you will be aware of. I'll just highlight Dreamworld because I was involved in that investigation, and even things like Tesla crashes. So there was a recent legal case involving Downer, which really looked at this and highlighted that this sort of gap between occupational health and safety and road safety is really not acceptable, and that if you are an employer of a worker, that you're required to protect them and the community everywhere, not just while you're on site, but also while you're off site. So Jerome just wanted me to highlight some of the Keem themes, and he might have a better, I guess, sort of outlook about what these were. I think the primary thing is highlighting why is it that road safety is different to workplace safety, or is it at all? Is it actually inherently similar? Under health and safety law in most states, as well as nationally, any place where work is undertaken is a workplace, so health and safety law applies, and that's the whole idea of the road as a workplace, and the Downer case really highlighted this as being applicable. Again, the need for nationally consistent guidance and a systematic approach to heavy vehicle safety. And I don't know, I think that's really the task for this group, is to highlight, high level principles, and I guess performance-based principles rather than, an ADR type initiative. I think that's probably not going to work here. Managing construction safety once the vehicle has left the site, and this is the sort of beyond the gate principle. Also, as Jerome highlighted, the National Road Safety Inquiry, highlighted, as does the new National Road Safety Strategy, that there are many different people who are capable of sort of nudging this forward, and we need to really tap into those groups. And that crash risk is achieved largely via systematic risk management, and that's where we have the alignment with safe. Jerome, did you want to jump in there at all?
I think that's pretty good. I think sitting over there, there's the underpinning moves for it all, and once again, it's happening around the different sort of places, a very sort of state-based sort of approach. So, no, going well, thank you, Chair.
All right. So I'll just highlight, so as part of the project for NHBR, we also published a website. It's currently sitting in what I'll call beta mode. It is not complete. And the transfer of content to this website is being undertaken at the moment to transfer it to the Clocs-A steering group led by Jerome. Jerome already highlighted this, but I'll just relay some specific wording here. And I'm going to sort of challenge, I guess, the group to think about this. Jerome talked about shared responsibility. In my experience in, I guess, occupational health and safety, that idea of shared responsibility often means passing the buck, and it often means no responsibility. And so I'd encourage everyone to consider the sort of idea of chain of responsibility, which has had a lot of success in specifically in workplace sort of OHS area, obviously in heavy vehicle. And I think the idea of chain of responsibility for road safety, so really having that chain and highlighting that each component of that chain has a responsibility. The road safety strategy highlights specific, you know, how we can rely, as Jerome said, on contracts, infrastructure planning, as well as heavy vehicles. You know, this might relate to crashworthiness, you know, route selection, everything that we spoke about. Again, just highlighting risk management. So that's really what this is about. It's about managing risk, and that each thing that you can do with the vehicle, with the user, with the road, with the journey, and even with the response after an incident has occurred and how that's handled, all of those things minimize risk. So the more things that we can do to mitigate risk, the closer we get to zero. And that's it. That's really all I've got to say. Happy to take questions and comments from anyone who was present for that first phase. And I'll hand it back over to Jerome.
Awesome, guys. Any questions at all for Tia while she's sitting here? Tia, I really like the point. Sorry, go ahead.
I'll turn off my mute.
Was there someone was about to ask a question? No? Tia, I just wanted to say that was fantastic. I really like the idea and how you sort of put the challenge out. And actually talking around the chain of responsibility instead of the shared responsibility. I think it makes it really clear instead of, and I heard the other day just when an expert actually said, look, how about everyone gets off the fence and make a clear decision to be active in it and don't pass on the buck. And that's what his organisation has done. As a result of that, they've had huge wins in the investments and returns and CSR, and it's just been an all-round win-win for their organisation. So thank you very much for that. Any comments or questions at all before we move on? Because the technical groups will be able to draw and slice these up. I'm trying to actually get everyone busily assigned into the various breakout rooms, and what I may even do is just open it up and let everyone else assign them, because actually with 47 people, it's taking a lot of time to do it all. Any other comments or questions that people would like to raise?
Just briefly, Jerome, just on that chain of responsibility issue, I think it absolutely correct in saying that too, but it's defining the roles and responsibilities of those in the chain as well. And I think that's something from a theoretical perspective, chain of responsibility is absolutely correct. However, in its implementation, it's very challenging. And part of that is due to lack of clarity in the roles and responsibilities of those that need to be accountable in the system. So in this project, I think it'd be important to be able to really map out who are the key actors in the system, what are their responsibilities, and what is their expectations, role behaviour expectations in terms of the Clocs-A.
Excellent. Adam, you've got a great comment you put in there, which is in the chat box for those who, because some people unfortunately can't use the chat functions, disabled for some government agencies. Per WHS Act 2011, Section 21, a person at a workplace must take reasonable care for their own health and safety. Great. All right, what I'll do now, I'm going to go back. We're going to move now into doing a bit of a SWOT. And same thing, using the Menti sort of functionality. Let me just bring this up, share my screen. And the way that we're going to be approaching this is it's going to be, I guess, a bit of a Menti, sorry, before I dive into that, the many elements that Clocs-A is built on. This is everything which is taking just a small touch on of all the different components in place across Australia, which we can draw on this as an example, and systems within the UK as well. And look, even when we began pulling things apart for the technical groups, we saw way more material begin popping up, which industries got in place, which other organisations are doing, local governments have got in. So this is really just the tip of the iceberg. And what we can do is bring it all together through this. And once again, it's not about recreating the wheel, it's about building on what already exists. And I'll sing out, if you want to have a look at VicRoads and a bit of a summary on their website, which got some great links to all the things which have just been taking place and in Victoria as an example. So what I'm going to do now is do a bit of a SWOT analysis and hear from all the different ranges of people in the group around what are the various components from a strengths point of view of bringing Clocs-A into Australia, the weaknesses, the opportunities and the threats. And we'll go through each single sort of page as we move through and say, look, here we go. And here's our sort of thoughts. So we've just got about 3 or 4 minutes per slide. And it's a chance to really do it and think rather quickly in how we're sort of doing it. So hopefully everyone's got the Menti slide ready. So let's all dive on in now and let's see what your thoughts are. What are the strengths and weaknesses? The strengths is the first component, weakness will be the next one. What do you think the strengths are of having clocks from the internal sort of forces? And if you see things which keep popping up, grab them. And make them bigger. So you can keep just adding to them. What I'm finding interesting is the consistency is getting larger, evidence base that's there as well. And on the evidence base, I'll also raise the point that evidence base can come from two sides as well, the practical based evidence and the research base as well. And I think that's really one of the major sort of components we can sort of draw on as a group. Systems, harmonise, it works, case studies, national sort of system, reference point, single standard, benchmarking is a really good one in there. It's a voluntary, correct? Level playing field. I think that's a key one there as well, the level playing field, as we sort of move across. Great. Proven, consistent, it works, standards. The big thing seeing at the center is the consistency, proven, level playing field, evidence-based. We've got a dash evidence-based and evidence-based sitting in there. So what I'm seeing is some real key sort of themes coming through in that sort of area as well. What I'll do now is I'll move on to the next sort of one. If anyone else has got any other ones they'd like to build on or point to. Simplification, confidence. Great. All right, I'll grab that. All right, let's go to the next one. Oh, no, a bit more is coming through. Okay, let's go to the next one. Let's think about now what we're looking at. What are the weaknesses? What are the weaknesses in what we're pulling together here? Perceived costs, too many outputs, regional differences. And I think that's a really interesting point. How do we make it scalable? Because obviously there's differences between our urban environments and our country sort of environments. How does that acceptance, perceived costs, no funding? That's an interesting sort of one as well. We have actually been applying, we're hoping now, through our application to HVSI, we might actually have the chance to make this a step up and actually show the national sort of leadership in taking this sort of forward as well. Communicating the values, small business. Time, resources, monitoring. And that's an interesting point. So on the monitoring, I guess that might be a bit like the auditing and those sort of components as well. I did circulate the case study that we've created with the Safe Load program as an example. And I guess part of their component is how they've gone about doing the monitoring and the auditing and the checking. It's really quite a light touch versus the broader Clocs program over in the UK. Karen's had something here, confusion, inconsistent communication, enforcement, road networks, some other sort of ones that people are throwing in, number of stakeholders. This is great. Major construction East Coast. And just going back in again, so there's an estimated $200 billion worth of infrastructure build going on in a pipeline over the next sort of decade to get things going. So it represents a huge opportunity for us to move forward. All right, let's just grab this one now. Yeah, last entries. Oh, I'll grab a snip of that. All right. We'll now move on to, oh, there's still a few more coming through. We'll now move on to the opportunities. The same thing now. What are the opportunities it represents by going ahead and bringing Clocs into Australia, adapting Clocs-A to Australia and creating a single standard for all of us to work through? So improve safety, there's some key things coming in through there. Some of the other opportunities might be created, might be actually looking at some corridors and focusing where vehicle movements may be moving through safer sort of areas as a thought, and opportunities providing technology players to come together and collaborate with industry on finding some of the solutions as well. Lift truck safety levels. It might also help with the benchmark of actually saying what else can we do with regards to bringing in and creating an opportunity for new trucks to enter the market, because there's certainty for the small operators. For those of you who don't know, the Clocs program over in the UK, I think it's 52% of the trucks that are signed up to that between 1 and 10 operators. So it's designed specifically for not just the big guys, but also the small guys who come on board and support it. All right, I think that's just about a little bit over. I'll grab that now. All right. Last one we've got now is weaknesses. So I'll grab that. The last one we're looking at now is threats. So what are the threats to making this actually happen? enforceability, change resistance, save costs. Manufacturer pushback, that's an interesting one. For those of you who know, like one of the big things that happened over in the UK with the manufacturer angle is the opportunity emerged all of a sudden for some of the new truck models to come in, and a few of the manufacturers stepped around the side and actually took a bit of a championing to bring in some of the newer, safer models because they saw a market opportunity to make greater funding. Clients don't adopt. Community buy-in's a good one. Not enough doers. Great. All right. I'll close that out now, and we'll begin moving on to the next sort of stage. And that's really, we're actually going to begin breaking ourselves into some of these, the technical groups now. And we have the chairs for each sort of one of them, which will then take the leadership, and we can actually dive into doing some meet and greet. People can then find out who the different sort of groups are, how they fit into it also. I'll grab this last one now. So as mentioned, we'll go into the technical sessions now. We're going to explore the global SWOT that's sort of been just circulated among everyone and see how it may relate to the different sort of groups. We're going to touch on terms of reference for each of these sort of groups as well. And the key thing when you think around is what are the outputs, the outcomes which can be produced by each of the technical sort of groups, work to date to inform the Clocs-A, how you can draw on that, because we have a wealth of knowledge, and think about who else is missing. So I've been on, I haven't gone through and assigned everyone's sort of groups. So what I'm going to do is open it all up. You can now go in and nominate which group you want to go into, or shift people around as well. So I think all of you have basically said what your preferences are. There's 4 technical groups and they've all been sitting there, and I've named them all as well. So just take the time to go and allocate to where you wish to go. And I'll be handing over to those chairs, and I'll see you back in about 40 minutes once this is all concluded. And a timer will come up as well for each of the groups. Whoops.
Recording in progress.
Any problems with anyone? Michael, whoops. You've gone in the wrong one, have I? Driver should be over there, Michael, now in the driver one. Great. So Martin to Thompson. Logistics.
We're first back, are we?
I think
like
there
it.
must be. I think everyone's gone over time.
Looks like it, yeah. My timer ran out about 5-10 minutes ago. I thought,
Yeah.
oh, I better join the bigger group, you know.
goes to show the conversation, doesn't it? It's good. Yeah.
So, Michael, there was something that I just wanted to raise based on some of the conversation, and that was maybe we would need someone from the trailer industry segment to be part of the group.
Yep, that's a good point.
Just
Yeah.
to get their balanced view on what could be done more so in the trailer space.
Trailer industry. Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Anyone knows?
Yep, sorry, I agree with that. I was just going to say one of our engineers that within Boral is doing a lot of work around the trailer space. Happy to sort of invite him in as well. So
That'll be good, Rob. Yeah, because my contact's only Maxi Trans, but I think they do semis more than dock trailers, you know, which may not be as relevant.
Yeah. No, so Merv Rollins, who's an engineer, is doing a lot of work around truck and dogs and all that sort of stuff. So,
yep, an introduction will be great, Rob.
okay,
Thank you.
I think this is a good point.
Yep. I see a few others have joined us back in the main group. I just got told that Victoria is entering into a snap lockdown again, 7 days from midnight tonight, for those who are not aware or haven't heard.
Hence, Tia was saying she was escaping Melbourne along with everyone else.
She wasn't joking.
Well, everyone inspires to get out of Melbourne at the moment.
I've got 2 kids under 5. Yep, we're
The escape route, off you go.
don't tell.
We'll have to edit that part of the recording, Jerome.
That's awesome. I gave everyone a little bit longer because I think discussion, our group was going quite well, and I sort of realised that if we didn't get the chance for everyone to bond and to share and discuss, we'll give everyone sort of a bit of 60 seconds because it's closing all the other groups off as well. But I thought it was a great chance. We had fantastic discussion in our one, and we'll have a chance to get everyone to report back in a tick as all the other groups come back in now. There we go. Everyone's sort of materializing back now. What we'll do now, if we've got everyone, I'll hand over, and I guess there's the last sort of 20 minutes or 30 minutes that we've got through, just the agenda that we sort of sent out to everyone. I'm just going to get each of the different chairs to give a bit of feedback, sort of like a sort of 4 or 5 minutes each. Then we'll just be touch on, I guess, a bit of the governance structure we're sort of looking at, and then just a bit of a closing everything up together for the end of today, and so look at what the next sort of steps are as well. So what we'll do, I think we've got everyone back now. Yep. So I'll hand over to Technical Group 1's chair to do a bit of an overview of discussion points that came up, thoughts, possible outputs, and the I guess any feedback on the SWOTs and things that took place as well.
Who is Technical Group 1?
Oh, sorry about that. That one was Safer Vehicles. So that'd be you, Michael Chan.
Yeah. That's right. So yeah, no, we had a good discussion. So I was mindful of the time. I thought we might get kicked out and beam into the main group. So we came back early. Yeah, we had a look at the SWOT analysis again, and I think there's a few key points that's been raised here. The opportunity that the group has identified are, I guess, safety active solutions that may come with newer trucks at preventing a collision. So this is basically viewed as a good opportunity right there, or strength there. Weaknesses are generally visibility and vision around truck and vulnerable road users is basically what was identified. Particularly with dog trailers, the towing point, the coupling point has often been raised as an issue there. So that's again, it's a weakness and as well as an opportunity to look into and see how we can improve that. In terms of threat, was identified as liability is the biggest threat when things go wrong. So that could be in a way, and incentivizing factor to get industry as well as regulators to work together to improve safety while we're on the front foot. So we had a look at that. We didn't get time to have a look at the terms of reference as yet, but there is a draft sitting there that perhaps we'll make another time to go through it in more details. We went in to discuss, a proposal, I guess, to sort of introduce 3 tiers of safety technologies. Had a lot of discussions there. Some very good points that has been raised, that we not only are we just looking at the trucks themselves, we should also have a look at the trailers to ensure that we can improve the safety and stability of those trailers. And then in addition to that, there was a good point that was raised around the buying power of the group if everyone demands for a safer new vehicles fitted with good safety technology, then manufacturers may respond and provide that to the Australian market. There were some challenges that's been raised, some good points that's been raised that around dimensions and mass requirements of us being very different to the UK. So transcribing what's in the UK automatically into Australia, into the Australian context, may be problematic. So we'll have to have a look at this closer at a more granular level and work through the differences and select what's, I guess, in the best interest for our country, in fact.
Awesome.
Yep, that's that from our group.
Jeez, a lot in a little time. Thanks for that, Michael.
No worries. Yeah.
I'll move on now to Amelia or Michael, if you guys want to talk to driver requirements and the discussion you guys had.
Hey, Jerome, yeah, I can talk through Technical Group 2 driver training and competency requirements. So, yeah, we have the great thing about our group is that, yeah, it's very diverse, and we had, a good opportunity to discuss a specific SWOT analysis for the driver training and competency requirements as part of Clocs. I think the key thing here is that obviously, this will lead to developing safer drivers, safer road users, improved knowledge and understanding of risks, mitigations, and importantly, that the training programs developed and skills and competency requirements developed encourage the development of empathy towards other road users. That's a key thing that we are highlighting in this, that'll need to come out as, yeah, we're all humans using the road space together, regardless of mode. Weaknesses, really, there are some, issues with, limited course availability, and currently, numbers of, drivers that have gone through the more practical units, such as the on-bike unit with the Sharing the Road Safely program. Also, potentially capacity of trainers as well, upskilling them in what is essentially a new course. But we also see that as an opportunity. So there's potential, obviously, to tap into the TLI framework. For example, Jim was saying from Bingo, their drivers go through the Driver Cert 3, which is a great course. And there's obviously a number of units of competency that sit underneath that. There's an opportunity for us to develop, a unit of competency which has the performance criteria for this particular course, vulnerable road user awareness, that could sit underneath that Cert 3 going forward. Threats, the obvious ones, which a lot of the groups have already mentioned, such as commercial cost constraints, or should I say perceived cost restraints as well. Economic pressures that we all have, COVID-19 as well. So yeah, they're sort of the main points from the SWOT. I probably missed a few as well. We had a good opportunity to have a look at the work to date, as well as review the ARB guidance as well, which we can use as a starting point for what the Clocs-A training competency requirements will include. Obviously looking at the local work from Amy Gillett Foundation, the training courses developed on the Sydney Metro project, as well as the original Safe Urban Driving course requirements as part of the FORS accreditation scheme, which sits under Clocs in the UK. We also had a good opportunity to go through some of the proposed key deliverables for the technical group, which obviously, as I've already mentioned, is really developing a driver training and competency standard, which sets out those elements, those knowledge criteria, but also identify existing training courses that might meet the standard that we are developing as well, and allow for that mutual recognition. Also, because of the diversity of industry operators that we have in our group as well, there's a good opportunity for us to develop a number of supporting tools that can help other areas of industry. We did identify that the group is lacking representatives from the building industry, for example, like your Brookfields and your Lendleases and that sort of thing. So we probably want to get them on one of the next forums. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we can share with those other sectors within the construction industry as well. And obviously, yeah, the main thing as well is that we can do with the transport agencies and the research agencies is monitoring and evaluating the effectiveness of those programs as well, making sure that they are evidence-based and delivering outcomes.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Geez. Once again, powered through a lot. Keem, Technical Group 3, Logistics.
Hi, folks. Yeah, we came from a slightly different angle. It wasn't really looking at the SWOT per se. I drove the group into sort of really looking at the type of the terms of reference and the what's been developed in the UK with regard to their construction sort of logistics plans, and basically how we would go about sort of what elements we would probably populate that with, and how to bring it into Aussifying it, I suppose. And there are quite a few. One was certainly at the micro level to look at things like your traffic management plans, your inspection bays, getting vehicles basically on and off site, basically safety. So the whole traffic management plan sort of, and and that certainly should be sort of part of the guide, and some degree of consistency basically for those plans, and possibly even developing the compact language basically describe sort of that level of movements and planning at that traffic and sort of route level. Certainly one of the interesting things was when the purchasing actually gets going, and the amount of business planning and the amount of expertise you actually need to really fit into the purchasing arrangements basically for sort of a very large project. It actually takes a lot of different and diverse basically skills, and with the mega projects this happens, and and certainly there's guidelines that we want to be scalable down to the sort of medium size sort of ones as well, which is basically getting the possibly the high level contractors, their purchasing mob, to actually talk and have their operations people basically involved, so that there's feedback basically up and down, so that eventually there's no great huge surprises or gaps basically when a contract is actually put together. So purchasing, the purchasing area and the planning area basically for large projects basically needs to really involve the sort of the logisticians and the operations people at the coalface, certainly the senior managers basically at those levels, especially for the big projects. So it's again, planning and purchasing basically by a sort of element basically in this. We spoke very, very briefly, alternative modes that had been mentioned before. Often there's very limited scope for it, but basically make allowances for it in contracts because it could happen, whether it be barges, conveyors, or very large pieces of equipment operating sort of after hours and things like this. There's almost there's possibilities there. Certainly, we spent a bit of time on the route assessment tools because eventually large construction projects effectively freight in your face, and there's a lot of community concerns about it. So what are the good routes that basically minimize environmental impacts, noise, sort of accidents, impacts on pedestrians, school locations and things like this. So there's a real, which is really intrinsic basically to the whole show of if you have large projects, is how best to service via what network those projects basically are serviced. We spoke at, there are potentially in all contracts, things will arise that are basically ad hoc, whether they actually be network related, infrastructure related, time of day related, and things like this. And some of these ad hocs need to be spelt out because, as one of our group members said, that unless there's some allowance for ad hocs, you'll just end up with a sort of ongoing legal bun fight. And surprise, surprise, I'm sure all big contracts basically have them, but there's ways of minimizing sort of those bun fights by actually building in a degree of flexibility for ad hoc problems that occur that weren't expected sort of at the time. And quite often they may well be route problems or infrastructure problems or potential tight turning circles for vehicles at different intersections and such things like that. Also potentially, which people probably don't often look at, is the potential economies of scale where you've got two or three large projects. They needn't necessarily all be mega projects basically in the same sort of neck of the woods, because you can get things like what's a forward leg trip for a particular set of trucks that could actually also involve a backhaul going from another site and things like this. So are there economies of scale basically with your network, your vehicles basically servicing two or three particular sites? I think it's a very interesting point, and it's something basically unique to this. Also, we're not really coming from a blank sheet of paper, and so there is potentially, and as Michael has just said, that there's various guides that have been put out. There's been safety work actually done with the construction areas, and also hunting through the archives of both Austroads and ARB. Basically, there will be little gems basically here and there with regard to access and how you actually do works at different times of day and things like this. So there's probably, and Jerome has alluded to this on many occasions, that we're not starting from scratch here. There's a lot of little gems basically out there, if not nice huge guidebooks and things like this that we can actually draw on. So I think there's quite fertile ground for actually sort of building in all areas, in all the technical groups basically, sort of on what has actually been done. Probably I'm
going to have to wind you up in a tick, Kim. We're going to run out of time in a tick, mate.
No, that's fine, and happily hand over to technical group 4. And
once again, an enormous volume of information squeezed into all of it. So thank you, Kim, hugely. Mel, over to you.
Thank you. Look, I think one of the things that we've already discovered with regard to communications with Clocs is that we're going to need to be very consistent in our messaging. And hearing Michael talk about the development of training resources, I think there's a lot of work to be done across all 4 technical groups when it comes to communicating messages to our different audiences. Resourcing will be a challenge, and it's going to be something that we're going to need to continue to apply for funding for, to be able to deliver good quality communication to the number of different audiences that we need to reach. Audience is something we will need to define, and there were some really good points made by the group today about some possible priority audiences that are at high risk at the moment. And we need to work as a group to combine that expertise and look at an audience list, but also I think a priority within that audience list for communication. So we've got a couple of different directions that we need to communicate. We still need to look at, gaining the support of industry and the construction sector and governments, but we also have an audience that we need to communicate with to get good road safety messaging across to. A good point made by Liz in the discussion was that some of the existing resources are both an opportunity but also a threat. We don't want to become yet another set of road safety messaging and to see the very important message about clocks become lost in the sort of, array of vulnerable road user messaging that is currently in the public space. It's all very well-meaning, it's all got its place, and there's some particularly really good examples, but we need to be smart about connecting to that and being consistent with some of the existing messaging so that we have some cut through and some impact and some behavioural change. Look, I think we've probably got a lot more work to do behind the scenes before we can understand exactly our way forward. And as a group, we are going to look at drafting some documents out of session to start to give us a little bit more structure and a little bit more detail behind some of the key areas that we really need to understand before we can sort of move forward.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that, Mel. So you can see each of those groups covered a lot of ground today. So what we're going to do now, just in the last sort of components, so we've basically got 8 to 10 minutes left. I'll just share, here we go, bring this up. So I thought, next sort of thing, we've gone through, heard from different sort of groups, got the constructive inputs around what we're going to do to move forward. Next part, I thought I'd just hand over to, just for Chris and to Michael. First of all, just so Chris, just to give us like sort of 2 or 3 minutes, I guess a bit around the governance structure of the Safe Load program, and Michael just give you a little bit of an overview of the governance structure of the construction logistics and community safety program over in the UK. Over to you, Chris.
Right, terrific. Thanks very much for that. For everyone who doesn't know, the Safe Load program is an industry-led program to support the dangerous goods field, particularly around transport of diesel and petrol on our roads. It was developed by the industry, and that's the major oils, so BP, Viva, Ampol and that group, and is extensively used. So the key issue here is that it has a lot of parallels to what we're trying to do within the clock space. It does already have a driver certification module. It already has a vehicle certification module, looks after some 10,000 vehicles, 560 odd transport companies. It's got 60 licensed trainers, 110 inspection sites. It supports some 64 odd fuel terminals. All that's out of the case study. The upshot of that, though, is that it is self-funded and it's purely managed by 2 people. So we're not talking about a significant overhead to manage 2 of our core planks of the Clocs-A standard. But it does require a lot of very good compliance work done up front and setting of vehicle standards. And this is where I'd suggest everyone to go through the case study and really understand what SLP, which is Safe Load Program, does for the dangerous goods vehicle industry. And it did create a minimum level of safety standards. It did create a level playing field that all operators measure up to, and did improve the safety of the dangerous goods vehicle field across the board. I'll keep it short at that. Thanks, Jerome, given the time constraint.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Chris. Really, really good summary. And it is a great case study, and you can see all the auditing and everything mapped out in there and over time as well. So thanks for that, Chris. Michael, over to you, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Jerome. So just for those of you who don't know, Clocs originally started in the UK, was actually established in 2013. Basically, Transport for London provided seed funding to facilitate the development of this scheme, and has since been overtaken by essentially a group of industry consortiums that are mainly non-for-profit organisations that work together to improve standards in the construction industry in general. But the good thing about Clocs is that it's just like our the membership is just like our group today. So there's a lot of diversity in terms of whether there are people that are responsible for the construction of the project, the development, the design, or actually transporting the goods to the site or not. Just quickly, there's about over 5,000 construction sites accredited to Clocs in the UK, and close to 500 corporate partners, or what they call Clocs champions. Underneath that, when you have a look at the fleet operators, there's over 100,000 vehicles accredited to the FORS standard, which complies with the Clocs standard. And with that, there's about 4,600 vehicle operators that are accredited. Basically, the way it works is that each Clocs champion develops an implementation plan and does an annual self-assessment against that plan, and basically puts forward continuous improvement measures. And that's essentially checked off by the Clocs Secretariat, which, as I mentioned before, is a consortium of a number of construction organisations, SecB, LHC, just trying to remember some of the Build UK, etc. Transport for London is also part of that secretariat as well. They're responsible for the day-to-day operational implementation of Clocs in the UK. What sits above that, though, is the governance, the Clocs Strategy Standards and Governance Board, which is purposely composed of representatives from every group that you can see on the page there. So there's a member or members from regulators, construction clients, principal contractors, etc. And that board is basically voted in every few years, I believe. And basically, you've got organisations such as local councils, clients such as Thames Tideway, Crossrail, we're on it, Mace, principal contractors, a number of fleet operators, Cemex, Tarmac, Hanson, etc., and also road safety agencies as well. So basically they are responsible for ensuring that Clocs aligns with its values, and it remains progressive, pragmatic. They approve the strategies going forward, and also act as the technical body to ensure that changes to the Clocs standard align with the principles of Clocs, which are similar to ours.
Awesome. Great. Thank you for that, Michael. So this is providing some context. The whole purpose of today, once again, was to provide background and build the foundations for us moving sort of forward. And I guess this is a drawing on what you just heard then. This is sort of looking at a bit of the draft sort of governance structure, and this will continually evolve as we sort of move forward and things progress. So we're coming up to the end, and I'll try and just move through the last little bit so we can get everyone together and just sort of close it all out. So I'm sorry for running a little bit over. But this is the governance body here, same to what Michael was talking about earlier. Looking at the steering committee, they will take it all forward, a managing body, and they then sort of sit down into the different sort of guides, technical groups, how things sort of work, and also then promote into the public awareness. And then across the side, we have the technical groups, which we sort of set on today. And what you can see here is you've got 4 of them sort of sitting in here at the moment. And then this group here will then sit over the top of them all. And the goal of that is actually to ensure they are all brought together and seeing that it's all sort of aligned and being done in a holistic sort of way. This is a bit more detail, which was sort of mapped out, and this will be shared through to everyone in how it's going. But the key sort of thing is, as we're moving forward, this is how NSGP is sort of hosted. Safe Load Programs is sort of hosted, sits off into another sort of group, keeps it as a very light touch. And the other goal is as this sort of moves forward, it will go out for expressions of interest for some organisation to act as the host and to take it all forward once it's all put in place and sort of established. And you can sort of see a detailed sort of approach here. And that sort of maps out very clearly how it's all sort of sitting in that sort of sense. So next steps, just to let you know, everyone, so we'll send out a bit of a summary, some papers. The chairs will probably reach out to each of the different sort of groups and circulate documents among them all. And so to begin sort of progressing the terms of reference and sort of brainstorming. Once again, it's what we want to achieve is to manage expectations as well. We're not trying to build something bigger than Ben-Hur. And we've got to do what's within feasible and within resourcing as well as things move forward. So next step, we should know hopefully in the next few months around the HVSI, whether we're successful in funding in that. And as you can sort of see at the moment, there's been a lot of bodies and people sitting behind it all who've helped make, I guess, this place sort of workshop come together. So we've got a number of sort of the steering group's been fantastic, and then we've had the chair as well. So Kim, thank you so much. Everyone's sort of been giving their time and doing it off the side on top of their usual sort of jobs, which is always a big ask. And that's what we're sort of hoping to make life a lot easier as we're sort of moving forward and sort of begin progressing the development of the Clocs-A sort of process. And I guess the key thing now is sign up to the MOU, get yourselves involved in that sort of way, and see how we can sort of build and bring this all together. So just in this last little bit, if people want to stay around for another few minutes, because some people may begin shooting off to other sort of meetings, I'm happy to open it up for discussion and questions, and I'm really keen to capture people's thoughts as well. And you can chat there in the chat box or raise it in the last few sort of minutes. Any thoughts from anyone at all?
Need to head off. Thanks, Jerome. That was great. We'll
Thank you
be in
very
touch.
much.
See you.
See ya. If not, I'm happy to call that quits unless anyone else wants to add any key points or something that might have been missed. Kim, you about to say something?
No, just it's been absolutely delightful to actually hear all the groups, and thanks for pulling the overviews together. So I think we've actually got a very broad and shall we say strong springboard to actually go forward with.
So yeah, so once we know more, we'll then see where things go and hopefully set something up the next couple of months and begin moving it all forward. But you'll hear from the different sort of chairs in the groups, and thank you all so much for your support and time today. It was very generous of everyone.
Thank
Have a great day.
Jerome.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thanks, Jerome. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.